Hello and welcome to Carers Talk, the podcast for carers, where we share advice, information and carers' experiences. My name's Michelle and I'm your host, and this podcast is brought to you by Carers Trust Solihull. We hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to another episode of Carers Talk. This week we're talking about dementia. From the 13th to the 19th of May is Dementia Action Week. This was created by the Alzheimer's Society to raise awareness about taking action on dementia and improving the dementia diagnosis rates. As we know, diagnosis is vital to give someone access to the right care and treatment and support, and also for the carers to get the right support. We also know that 1 in 3 people living with dementia do not have a diagnosis. So here at the Carers Trust this week, we've been taking part in the campaign. We've done a number of information stalls within the community this week, which have been great. We have met a lot of carers who were actually quite unaware that they were carers and that they were supporting someone with dementia. We also held a workshop with Dementia Carers Count. This workshop helped carers come together for information and advice, and also gave them the opportunity to share experiences. Today I'm joined by Katie Evans, who is a specialist practitioner with Dementia Carers Count. Hello, Katie.
Hi, Michelle.
Thank you ever so much for joining us for the chat this week.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for having me along.
Katie, would you mind introducing yourself and maybe introducing us to Dementia Carers Count and the work you do?
Of course, no problem. Thanks, Michelle. My name's Katie Evans and I'm a specialist practitioner with Dementia Carers Count. My background is as a social worker, and I started working for Dementia Carers Count around 2.5 years ago. We're a small charity that supports people across the UK who are caring for someone living with dementia, and we support people across their dementia journey. So from when they're having maybe symptoms to diagnosis to changes that a carer might be seeing, and to palliative care and after caring as well. We're here to listen to carers, to campaign, and to also offer them advice and advocacy across the caring journey, because we know there's over 800,000 unpaid carers supporting someone with dementia in the UK. And our organisation, we have a carer support line, which is available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that's staffed by our health and social care professionals. We're only a small team, but we work with people across the UK and we offer them practical advice, so from financial support to dealing with social services to information and strategies around dementia care. We also have access to counselling support through our service as well, which is available for free to family carers. We then have some online groups which are running, as well as our website, which offers a range of different sources, so podcasts, it's got videos, it's got written information, all about trying to support family carers through some challenging situations and just trying to help them feel heard and less isolated from caring.
That sounds wonderful. And I am aware of your organisation, but I did myself go onto your website and look at some of the resources, and I have to say they're fantastic.
Thank you.
The variety of support that people can have, from practical to emotional support, there's some really good content there. So what I will do is put the link to the website in the show notes, so the carers can see. It's so vast, the support. Mm-hmm. Needed for dementia, not only for the person that has dementia, but for the carer as well. And it, like you say, it's a journey, and people are at different points of that journey. Do you find that a lot of carers that come to you are at the start, or are they more towards the end? Is it or general?
I mean, unfortunately, we do speak to people at times of crisis very often, and I think sometimes people don't reach out for that support and help until they sometimes have to, that they feel that maybe they've got nowhere else to turn, don't know where to turn. But we are trying to reach people at that earlier stage, that they know where to find information, whether it be about supporting them to reach their local services and to be able to find things that can support them in their caring roles. So we'd like to be able to reach people that much earlier, but we do find, like last year's survey that we did identify, is that very often people are in a time of crisis when they reach out. So it's a challenge, and lots of organisations I think face the same, where people don't look for the support until things have become more difficult.
Yes, we find that as well. And I suppose with yourselves as well, you understand that a lot of people don't see themselves as a carer.
Yeah, absolutely. The term carer in itself, when did somebody suddenly change from being a husband or wife and, suddenly have this term carer almost attached to them, when they feel very much differently, that, hang on, I'm still this person, I'm still this person to the person I'm caring for. So the term carer often, although it opens up support and access to certain services, assessments, it's quite a difficult thing for somebody to adjust to sometimes, having that label.
Yeah, I completely agree. And especially with the campaign at the moment, telling people about how important it is for diagnosis. And I think I read that one in three people who, have dementia don't have a diagnosis. And if, I think if people aren't aware themselves, then to get support, that's just an added thing, isn't it? So it's really important that people are aware.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, just something to say about our service is that someone doesn't have to have had a diagnosis for the carer, for the family member to be able to speak to us. We don't have a criteria in terms of someone who is waiting for a diagnosis, or perhaps there's barriers to why they've not seen a GP and not wanting to pursue a diagnosis. So just to highlight that.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so there are many challenges that carers face when supporting someone with dementia, and again, depending on where they are in their journey. And as well, dementia is so unique to the person, isn't it? They can have two people with the same form of dementia who can experience it very differently, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. As the saying goes, that when you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. And we at Dementia Carers Count often talk about how that is exactly the same for the carer, that actually, their journey's unique to them as well. They're individual. No one size fits all. They might need different things from different professionals, from organisations and support. They might need very different things. So, the challenges that they might be facing can include a big list of things in caring. It's quite exhaustive, to say the least.
And I think one of the hard things as well can be quite the challenging behaviour or the repetitive behaviour. And I read on your website that it's the understanding of why the person is actually behaving this way can actually help the carer. Would you mind elaborating on that a bit?
Yeah, of course, because I think when, the person, say from diagnosis, has sort of a diagnosis of, for example, Alzheimer's disease, if we can try and understand what Alzheimer's disease, how it affects the person, what changes that the person that's caring might expect to see, it can help us to think of ways of adapting ways of managing things differently. If we know that somebody's short-term memory is affected by their Alzheimer's, then we can look at ways of helping them to improve their daily living skills by thinking of strategies and ways of managing. I think it's good to have that understanding that helps us to adapt the way we approach things.
Yeah.
And that's certainly, it was the focus of Monday's workshop as well, is thinking of, if we can understand dementia, then we can start to adapt how we respond to it and how we best support the person.
No, definitely, because I've heard it said that you have to go into that person's world, or you at least have to kind of bridge the gap and meet them where they are, because it may be that they're, mentally they might be in a different time in their life.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really good resources out there that really highlight this. And the NHS used something called Barbara's Story, which is a series of videos about a lady named Barbara, and it shows how her reality has shifted. So in her mind, she's a lot younger. Her husband's still with her. And when people come in and want to try and support her, she doesn't understand why they're there. She thinks she's younger, so she looks in the mirror and doesn't always identify. So trying to put yourself into that person's reality is quite important and can help us help to resonate, help us empathize and really try and understand what they might be experiencing.
Definitely. And I think, as a carer, the emotions that you may feel when maybe someone is behaving differently towards you than they normally would, I think it helps to know actually that it's the disease that's causing this behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely. Because almost all forms of dementia, people will see personality changes, see behaviour changes, and it's really, really difficult, like you say, those emotions that you feel when somebody acts out of character, when somebody does something that they did never have done previously. For a carer, that can obviously be really disturbing and really, really difficult to understand. But if we can try and sort of think through what the dementia is causing, and we can understand certain changes in the person's progression of their dementia, can really help to support the carer.
And it can be even little small tweaks, can't it? Like, from experience, that there was a lady who had always, been a mother. She'd had lots of children. And when she progressed within her dementia, she found her daughter found a little dolly, and that would help her mom, settle her, because she felt that she had this, this baby. And it's little things like that, isn't it, that can help.
Yeah, I mean, if we can understand the needs behind someone's changes in behaviour. So for that lady, she was looking for some comfort and security or attachment to something. So that all really helped her. Sometimes it can be something like a therapy dog, can be a therapy cat, which actually, there's quite a lot of these on the market now. There's a hug doll as well that the Alzheimer's Society have available, and it's all about bringing out those needs. If we can understand what somebody might be lacking, what they really need, then it can really help. And that was sort of in my previous role, was about trying to understand and unpick those needs so we could better support somebody and really help the carer to understand what the person was needing and looking for.
I think that's so important, because I know a big part of dementia as well is that communication, that they can't always tell us what they need, how they feel. And I think that can be quite frustrating for both individuals.
Yeah, of course. And, it's where if somebody's communication has started to change, what professionals can we look to? So perhaps it's asking the GP to refer for a speech and language therapist. Could they look at some visual cards, some visual pictures to be able to support the person to communicate? If it's about changes in the person's cognition, so their insight starts to change, what can we do to still ensure that they're able to have as much independence as possible, that we can still find ways of communicating? And something that's been very much researched and now is becoming more available is music therapy.
Yes.
And there's some wonderful work being done around singing for the brain. Obviously, the dementia choir, which Vicky McClure promoted and is very much supporting, and the power of music has been shown to really help and support communication. And to really, in all of the approaches, it's all about connection.
Yeah.
It's all about supporting the person to connect, and hopefully it's to the person that's caring for them. But also it can be many different ways as well, in creating meaningful connection for people, and trying to make things as positive as possible for them.
I know that we've spoken about kind of stepping into the person's world. Should we correct someone with dementia, with facts and things like that? How should maybe a carer manage that situation? Mm-hmm. Does it depend on the circumstances and things like that?
Yeah, and I think it's considering really what the individual situation's about and whether it would be causing any distress. So if it was about something very big in their lives, or if somebody thinks that maybe somebody is still alive that has maybe passed away, now sort of hitting someone with that hard truth would be very difficult straight off. But what do you know about their reactions? How would they take that information? And sometimes, it could be gently kind of distracting. It could be kind of saying, oh, they might be along later, depending on where somebody is in their dementia. But it could also be showing somebody maybe a eulogy, the leaflet when somebody has sort of passed away, to try and reorientate them to the past, when it's sort of those smaller situations that maybe aren't as kind of key. Is it worth considering what impact that's going to have on yourself as a carer?
Yeah.
If you sort of say to the person a little white lie, is that something that's going to impact on you? Is that something that's going to be hurtful for them? Because when we see someone's distress increasing, it's sometimes worth taking a step back and thinking, did they need to know this at this time? And I think correcting is something that is often very wearing for a carer. If you're constantly trying to correct, trying to reorientate them, the person that's going to feel that stress and strain is yourself as a carer.
Yeah.
It's not going to necessarily be the person themselves. So I think just taking that step back wherever possible and thinking, who is this causing distress to? And working through things in that way.
Yeah, and avoiding that unnecessary conflict, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's not going to do them any harm, then steps I can imagine can be beneficial.
Yeah, it can be. And it's very often, when we talk about sort of stress and distress, it's actually who is experiencing that stress and distress. Is it the person, or is it those closest to them? And very often it is the people closest to them. So it's about working a way through that.
Yeah, and I found that sometimes it's often the person, the primary carer, who often gets the brunt of a lot of the frustrations the fallout, the upset. And I've heard that that's sometimes because they see that person as a safe place. For example, a husband and wife, the husband would go to the day centre and he'd be great at the day centre, but then he would come home and his behaviour would be really changed for his wife. And that can be really, really hard, can't it, for the carer? They often get the brunt of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that day centre example is one that I've certainly heard many times. And for the carer, they might feel, well, how come they've had a good day there? Why is it that they've come home and then suddenly it's just, the two of us and they're being really, quite challenging at home. But actually, if you think during that day centre, that person's had simulation, they've had things going on all day. They might have been talking to a few people that are also attending. They might be doing an activity as well. So often when they return home, they might be exhausted.
Tired, yeah.
As well, overtired. And what do we do when we're overtired? We get grumpy, don't we? I think it's worth considering why the person's reacting in those ways, and maybe they do just need to relax when they get home from the day centre, that it's not sort of something else happening after that, to just have a little rest afterwards. But also, as a carer, understanding that you're not at fault for that as well. Yes. And those reactions, maybe you're talking to them when they've had a day of trying to concentrate and try and respond appropriately to things that are going on at the day centre. So yeah, just taking care of yourself within that as well.
Yeah, no, completely. Another thing that can be quite challenging is, and that's important, is the relationship, isn't it, between the carer and care for, and whether that's wife, husband and wife, or mother and daughter. It depends, if they've had a good relationship, a bad relationship. It's difficult, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, very often that those relationships, like you say, come with their own history, don't they? And
completely.
And it's hard if you've had sort of a difficult relationship over the years before the person's had a diagnosis, then actually it can be very hard to switch your thinking and forget about some of those issues. So, we used to have a saying around not speaking about people being loved ones, because very often relationships are so individual and complex that often it's about caring for that person despite some of those challenges in the history, and that's quite something to do sometimes. I think it's not always considered enough when relationships have been quite difficult over the years, and then suddenly the person's supporting.
It can be really challenging, and how. We have a lot of carers who express that the person they care for, they know that they need help, or they know that they, for example, should be taking medication, or even that the person won't acknowledge their diagnosis. Yeah. Do you have any kind of advice around that?
Very often it might not be about won't acknowledge, but maybe can't. Because very often, when we think of somebody's short-term memory being affected by dementia, it could be that they're not able to store that information that they've been given. They might have been told at the memory clinic that they've got a diagnosis of dementia, but actually that appointment might have been in a short-term memory. They've maybe remembered it for that short period of time, and then it's not been able to be stored because it's not going into their longer term memories. So that's something to consider. We know that for lots of people living with dementia, they might need support that they're completely refusing, and the carer themselves, the family, can see that they're struggling with certain aspects. And that's where things like legislation come into place, things like the Mental Capacity Act, where actually we need to consider, has that person got mental capacity to decide if care and support is needed? And this is where you do need to involve professionals to try and assess a person's mental capacity over certain decisions. It still can remain a challenge even when somebody lacks capacity, because they might still, have the ability to make unwise decisions, or have that the least restrictive approach always applies as well. So maybe, if the person is adamant, I'm not having carers in to support me, and it becomes quite challenging, that can obviously be a worry for families, and seeing someone where that there could be support available to help them live more independently, have more opportunities for social needs to be met, but they're resisting. That's quite difficult. But I think it's making sure that you take care of your own needs as a carer, where you're really worried about the person, and it's not getting any easier. You've involved the GP, you've expressed your concerns perhaps to social services or other organisations. I think it's just ensuring, well, I've done all that I can, and I think that's quite difficult to accept, isn't it, as a family carer, but still very important.
Yeah, and like you say, you can only do so much, and it's hard. It's hard to know that you've done what you can, and accept that, really.
It really is, because we support lots of family carers who, are working full time. They might have children themselves, and they might be trying to support one or two family members, as in many cases. And honestly, people will say, I'm not doing enough, but actually there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much that a person can do. So I think, and that's what we try and reassure people about when they feel this sense of guilt, and that, that they feel they should be there for the person, but actually, nobody's superhuman, and patience isn't endless either. So I think it's really about trying to support people to get through some of those feelings sometimes as well.
I completely agree, and holding space for that they are human, caring for someone with dementia. I love what you said about, patience is limited, that, if someone is asking you something, 100 times a day, anyone would get frustrated, angry, and the guilt that carers can feel because they feel angry about, the person that they care for, they carry that as well, don't they? But we always try and say, you are human too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the impact on carers. I mean, there was a study a few years ago now which talked about guilt being a major factor, but also, like you say, that frustration, the anger and resentment, which are natural human emotions to going through some difficult times. And, I think it's giving yourself permission very often as a carer to feel those things, to be able to, wherever possible, talk about them, whether it's to someone in an organisation, whether it's to another carer, to a friend that you trust, that you can feel comfortable isn't going to judge and is just going to listen and, maybe offer up some ideas, but isn't going to go in with that judgment of you should do this, this and this, but actually, just supporting them and knowing that they're there for them, I think is so important.
It really is, because a lot of the time there isn't much that can be done practically, or but just having that time to talk, especially peer to peer, people that have experienced it. That's why we really encourage carers to come to support groups, because they're experts by their experiences, and they help, and they get so much out of that. It's really powerful to see that. When talking about feelings, we also mention the grief that can come. And that's something that I found when I've worked with carers supporting someone with dementia. Grief is a big issue. It's that grief of potentially watching that person, losing the person in front of their eyes. It can be difficult. And also that grief of what's to come and what they've lost. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And anticipatory grief is something we hear a lot of carers feeling and experiencing, and it's something that we hear at points of change, when someone might have seen a dip in someone's presentation, so they've seen sort of a change in their behaviour, that can feel very much like a loss of the person. It can be when they maybe start to become disorientated around names or place or time. That can feel like a loss. And I think, as many carers talk about, it can very much be a roller coaster of emotions that can lead to that anticipatory grief feeling. And many people have talked to us as well about how, because we know dementia is progressive, how when the person does pass away, they can often feel, well, why aren't I feeling the weight of all of the emotions of bereavement? But actually it's because they've experienced all those touch points of anticipatory grief, and there's been quite a number of studies into those feelings. It doesn't make it obviously any easier overall. I think that those feelings of grief weigh quite heavily on family carers, knowing what they might have, if they cared for somebody in the past as well, or known of somebody, that can often resonate. They're thinking of other people that they've known with dementia. And
with someone who may be experiencing these feelings of grief, what would you advise? Would you advise to talk to someone?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say about, reaching out for, whether it be some counselling support and talking through those feelings, whether it be through trying to build up your own well-being, your stores of resilience. We often talk about the oxygen mask and how when you get on a plane, you're always told about you have the safety briefing, and during that they explain that in order to help another person, you have to put your oxygen mask on first. And it's something we reinforce a lot with people, but often family carers are just thinking of that person, doing many tasks during a day, and often not thinking of themselves at all. And when we say, please do reach out, please do look for ways of having some time out, people go, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But it's about building up your batteries, because you can't run on empty at all times. You need to find ways of restoring those feelings of I matter as well. And I need time out. I need to be able to see other people that I also care about in my life, not necessarily caring, but caring about. And then, your own interests, your own activities you like to do, be it going for a walk, going shopping, going swimming, going out for lunch, to have those times are really, really important. But again, people always feel this sense of guilt that they're having that time out. But again, we try and reassure that actually you very much need it and deserve that, and giving people the excuse to take that time.
By filling their own cup, they can pour in. I know it's a cliche, but by them, filling their own cup, they're better to look after the person they care for.
Yeah, exactly.
But I understand there are many challenges to getting respite and things like that for a lot of carers. It is an issue, but it is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Katie, do you think there's anything that we may have not touched on, or that you think could be useful?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the workshop on Monday that we held, and it's the third year that Dementia Carers Count have been invited by yourselves to come and talk during Dementia Action Week. And I mean, what we did, we had a presentation that was all about raising awareness of dementia, the different symptoms, the different side effects, the different changes in behaviours. But what was the most powerful an important part of the day was hearing people connecting with each other and hearing them talking about their experiences, because they were all local in Solihull, being able to talk about, well, I found this group on a Wednesday and this was really useful for me. I use this pharmacy for this
fantastic.
and really sharing that local knowledge, actually, an organisation coming in from a national perspective can offer. But what I think the presentation gave was part of those talking points that really kind of jogged a lot of people's feelings. There were a lot of obviously emotions that were being shared as well, because of people at very different points and stages of caring. And I think that we made sure it was a very safe space, that people had the opportunity to speak one-to-one with ourselves as well, to be able to protect how they were feeling, talk about those feelings, and then connect them to the support that would be useful for them. So I hope that we'll be able to continue that and to keep doing these workshops over time as well.
Yeah, completely. I think they're so beneficial. Bringing organisations together to spread awareness it's what this week is about, and hopefully reaching people that might not be aware of the support that's out there to them.
Yeah, exactly. And like I mentioned earlier on, one size doesn't fit all with support, and not everyone is comfortable coming to a group. So where can you find that one-to-one if you feel you need one-to-one, or if you need an alternative method as well? Do you like to read something? Well, what can we find that'll be useful for you? Do you like to hear something on a podcast like we're doing now? Or watch video, what will work for you at the time you need it? Because I think that's something as an organisation, we want to be able to work through partners so that we find ways of doing things together, because when we all work together, I think it really benefits the family carer. It really does. And it's been good to be part of this. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome. And I really like that point that you said about carers have different ways of coping, because that is so true. We have a lot of carers who love the practical workshops, love that side of things. But then we've got other carers who enjoy more support groups and the social side of things. So again, it's that not one size fits all. Something I did want to kind of close on is dementia is a devastating illness, but there's also positives. There can be hope and there can be positive experiences. And just because someone is diagnosed with dementia doesn't mean it has to be this sad story. I mean, of course, there's emotions, but there's also a lot of positivity and love that can come from those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we spoke with a carer yesterday who shared an absolute piece of gold dust, really, in terms of what the experience can be for many people, in that he said that he cares for his mum. It's always a relentless privilege in caring for mum, even if it isn't always a pleasure.
Wow.
And I think that really summarises a lot of people's experiences, is that actually they want to do this, they want to be there, but sometimes it's hard and sometimes they really need support. So I think, there's lots of ways that people can live well with dementia, that we need to think of those ways of keeping that meaningful connection, keeping those meaningful activities, and it can really help the carer along the way when we do that.
It can help it be a better experience.
Yeah, it really can.
Well, thank you ever so much, Katie. I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
What I will do is I will put All of the information that we have spoke about links to your website and the support that you have available, and also local support, through the Alzheimer's Society and through ourselves. Also, we've got Carers Week coming up. That's between the 10th and the 16th of June. So that's right around the corner. And we have lots of events and activities going on during the week. We'll be raising awareness in hospitals and in the community, as well as having some lovely events for carers. So anyone interested, we do have the page now on our website, and I'll put that in the link below as well. And that's it for this episode. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.